I've never bought so many things or even spent so much money all at the same time from Aliexpress before. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches, and it has been a rather exciting week for me because I've been receiving a lot of packages from Aliexpress because I've bought a bunch of stuff. I've bought a few watches, I've bought a few watch-related tools, and I've bought a few parts that are going to be used in an upcoming watch build. A rather interesting watch build, or at least I hope is an interesting watch build. And I've done this because, well, firstly, AliExpress themselves gave me a small amount of credit to use to buy stuff, and then I sort of went a little bit ballistic and just effectively used that as a bit of a discount to buy all the things that I've bought. Also, one of the watches that I purchased on behalf of a friend, so technically it's only on loan to me. I'm then going to send it off, but it's actually been quite good to get some hands-on experience with that. But because this was partially funded by some credit that AliExpress gave me, well, I'm going to put that sponsored icon pop up there. I did pay for a lot of this stuff myself. I just effectively used that credit to give myself a discount towards buying all this stuff. But I'm also going to leave some links to everything that I've bought below, because there are some things that I've purchased, including these watches, that you may be interested yourself. I'm going to swing back to obviously a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today in later videos, especially the watches. Obviously do full reviews of those ones. I'm going to have to do one of them fairly quickly because I will have to be getting that one watch off to my friend, but also some of the tools and of course the parts that I'm going to be using to create this rather interesting watch. Now, I'm not going to be rushing that build. I've got some interesting ideas about that one, but today I just want to show you just how many things that I've had arrive this week, but also share with you what they are. So yes, there is a lot of things here to look at. 3 watches, a whole bunch of parts, and also some tools that I'm intending to use with those parts. And I'm quite excited about these watches and these parts and these tools for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, there's one here that I think is absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, it's actually not mine technically. I bought it on behalf of a friend. I'm then going to actually just have some time with it, do a full review of it, but then I'm going to have to send it on. But I'm actually more excited about these parts and these bits and pieces because I'm going to be doing what I'm going to say is, and what I hope is going to end up being, a very interesting watch build. Not what you would normally see on YouTube, certainly not something that you would normally think to do yourself, or at least what I think is going to be a bit different. But I'm not going to go into that today. Today I'm just going to show you all these bits and pieces, starting with these 3 watches. And you can see I've got a Hruodland, a Sandman, and a Tactical Frog, and I'm wearing a Hruodland whilst I show you these watches. Let's start with the Sandman because this is a relatively new release, one that I was actually considering buying for myself, but when my friend reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really like to own that one. Would you like to buy it on my behalf, then have some time with it, and then feature it, but then send it down to me? I said, yes, please. They call this one the SN0144GX. And I'm actually quite surprised and very actually happy to get hands-on with it, because when I first saw this one, I thought, oh, this is just another variation of a watch that I've already owned and that I've really liked, but just with a different dial and a different bracelet. And I was very keen to get hands-on with this bracelet. But what has been a big surprise to me is that there is actually a lot of other differences. Different hands, different logo, different bezel, different clasp. This is actually a very, very nice watch, and actually doesn't repeat itself much compared to my previous one. I think it does have the same case, but it has a different bezel and just so many other different features. The bracelet itself is absolutely gorgeous. One of the softest, nicest bracelets I've previously felt, but definitely also an interesting new clasp variation too. Sandman is doing some interesting stuff. They're bringing out a lot of new designs, different sizes, different variations, but they're also evolving. They're not just reusing parts over and over. They seem to have done that in the past. Now they seem to be doing some different stuff, and that's really impressive. Stay tuned for a full review of this one coming soon. The next 2 have actually been watches that have been on my AliExpress watch list for ages. I keep thinking about buying them. Sometimes they go off my wish list, sometimes they go on my wish list, sometimes they go off my wish list. And I've just finally decided, actually, these 2 have always been there. They've always been interested to me. I'm just going to buy them. So, firstly, the Hruodland. This is obviously another one from this brand. It is an IWC homage technically, and I've actually owned the original IWC of this one. And I have to say that, well,
it's a little bit unexpected because although I kind of expected it just to be a homage of that watch, it's actually something quite different, especially because it is significantly smaller, significantly thinner, and it just sits and wears differently. It is a lovely looking design, sort of pilot vintage sort of look with a hand winding movement, no screw down crown, but the loom also is incredibly amazing. The strap is absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'm always impressed by Hruodland watches. They are a little bit hit and miss sometimes with their design choices, but they are always really well made. And this one has been on my list for such a long time that I'm very glad that I've ended up purchasing it. And this is definitely not my first tactical frog, but it is certainly one that I should have just bought ages ago. It has continued to be on my wish list for too long. This is an FXD homage. It is made out of titanium. It has these solid lugs. And they're probably the two reasons why I thought that possibly I shouldn't buy it, because I'm not a big fan of titanium. It does worry me a little about these sort of solid lugs. But as I sort of should have expected, it's really well made. It's really nice. Horrendous bezel action, however, but let's put that aside for the moment, because overall, a very nice looking watch, and I think it's going to be one that I'm actually going to enjoy wearing. I like the strap, it presents well, and I've got a friend who actually really loves the FXD. He owns one, it's one of his most worn watches, and it's actually kind of nice now to just get a homage of it so I can get that sort of experience, so I can then tell him that, yes, I now understand why you like that design of watch and that size of watch so much. And although I am excited about having these ones in my collection, even though this one might only be temporary, it's actually the other things that I bought that have most excited me. And I want to show you them, give you a little bit of a sneak peek about what I'm going to be planning on doing, but also to show you what else you can buy from AliExpress that is worth purchasing from AliExpress. And let's start with all the bits and pieces that I'm planning on using or learning with or practicing with to build my own custom build. But what I do want to say is that I wasn't specifically looking to buy parts from AliExpress for this. I wasn't going, I'm doing an AliExpress watch build. I actually looked everywhere, but I just kept coming back to AliExpress because of cost, price, and what it is, because a lot of these things that you can buy, let me start with, well, what should we start with? I actually bought a couple of different dials. Let me show you the dials first. I bought a couple of different dials because I firstly want to practice, but I was looking at these dials of these watches. Where's the other dials? Double dials there, dials there. I was looking at dials elsewhere on other websites, and they were either lesser quality or pretty much the exact same dials, which you can buy from AliExpress, but just costing more. This is probably the one that I'm most likely to use. It is very much looking a bit like an IWC Portuguesa, but I've got some plans for it. But I got another variation just to do something a little bit different, and I actually went for another IWC looking dial, very similar to that other watch that I just showed you as well. But I've got some ideas about what to do with them. I also want to have a little bit of practice with doing some things on them. So they're my sort of dials that I'm planning to use. And I'm also planning on using a movement. This is the Seagull ST3600 or something, and I'm not actually going to use this one. This one I'm going to be using to practice to pull apart and put back together, because I want to learn a little bit more about how to do that, and apparently this is one of the best movements to do that, and it's going to be good practice for when I then use this skeletonized movement as well. Now you may think, well, this is a skeletonized movement. How is that going to look behind a dial? It's going to have a bit of a weird look. Well, that's where one of my first things that I'm going to do that I think is going to be rather interesting. So stay tuned for that. I've got some interesting ideas. I honestly have no idea if this is actually going to work or not, this idea of how to build this watch or what these little interesting elements are. If it does end up working out, it's going to be awesome. If it doesn't, well, hopefully it makes for an interesting video. Of course, I bought a case for it. I think this is a great looking case actually. It's got those sort of interesting sort of applied lugs there, or those little sort of vintage style lugs. It's mineral crystal back and front. Well, that should be interesting to use. There are some crown stems for this specific movement. If you're ever going to do a watch build, make sure you buy spare crown stems, because if you're adjusting the size of it, you may not get it right the first time, so it's worth having a few. And some hands. I've actually got a couple of sets of hands that I'm going to be trying and using and playing with. I'm actually going to do some heat treat bluing of these hands as well. That's one of the things that I'm looking forward to trying, and this is one of the sets that I'm going to be using. And I thought, since I'm going to be doing this custom mod build myself, and then I'm sort of getting into this a little bit, and I've been doing some sort of builds myself, then maybe I should expand my watch tools, especially this one here. This is designed to put hands on a watch. One of the things that I struggle with most with these watch builds is getting the hands on, at least getting them on nice and straight. This is designed for that. It doesn't make it completely easy, but it makes it easier. You get a watch movement holder, which is like this thing here. I need to probably get another one. You put the watch movement into that holder, into there, and then you just press down and push the hands on. So it creates a much more vertical up and down movement, so you're not doing this with the manual hand pusher thingy-de-bob, which I think has been a problem for me in the past. They're a little bit hard to get onto the movement, but then when I push down, I think I push at angles and I've caused problems in the past. This thing here pushes down perfectly. You can then movement and use it for the different hour hand, second hand, have the different little nibs on it. This apparently as well, you can change out these nibs with Bourgeon nibs as well. So if you want to upgrade the tool, you can upgrade just the nibs and not the entire thing. So I'm really looking forward to trying that out. I have no doubt that's going to be slightly perplexing, or at least slightly annoying initially to use, but I think hopefully that it helps. I'm also said that I'm going to be looking at pulling apart movements, learning a little bit more about movements, trying to get to understand that particular seagull movement. If you're going to do that, you sort of need one of these to keep the dust off all the parts as you're pulling it apart and putting it back together. And these are only a couple of dollars off Aliexpress. And I bought a few watch dials, so I need a little watch dial holder. Put the little watch dial in there, you can close it up, keeps it out of the dust. I bought a 3-pack of them. They were only a few dollars as well. And because I did buy a few dials, and because I am going to be trialing a few different things with them, I want them to be safe. And these little watch dial holders, I think they're a great idea. I saw them on another channel and I thought, well, for that price, what a great little idea to have little watch dial holders. Now, I don't actually think this is a specifically necessary tool to have. In fact, I haven't seen many watchmakers use them, but whenever I pick up hands and things with my tweezers, I get a little bit freaked out that I'm going to scratch them, which is why I thought I could probably get a nice set of tweezers with these wooden tips. So if I'm picking up something and I'm a bit concerned that I'm going to scratch it or cause some damage, I can use these. Now, I'm sure if anybody is a watchmaker or if anybody is watching this that knows how to make watches or build watches, they're probably going to say that you don't actually need them. But I thought it was a nice idea to have them as an option. I know I can be a little bit clumsy sometimes, especially with these fine, delicate things. So I thought having this as an option would be nice. And being off Aliexpress, they didn't cost a lot of money. But what I can say is that they are, well, much better quality than I expected. And something that I've been needing for a long time, because I've been using screwdrivers that I just had in my shed, which were reasonable screwdrivers, but they weren't specifically for watchmaking. I've upgraded my watch screwdrivers. Now, I did consider actually buying the Bourgeon ones, but they're very, very expensive. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos from watchmakers about watch screwdrivers and what to buy. And apparently these ones from AliExpress, from this brand Kwong Yang, apparently are probably the best semi-affordable or affordable screwdrivers to buy. Now, they weren't really, really, really cheap, but certainly a lot cheaper than, well, the professional ones. They have a really nice sort of ball bearings in here, so it's very nice and good feeling there. Has little detachable nibs there that you can do. And what they have said, some of the videos that I've said, is you buy these, and then when you want to, you can actually upgrade the nibs and replace them with Bourgeon nibs. So effectively, you got a lot of a cheaper screwdriver. You still have that nice functionality. Does feel very nice in hand. A lot more control. Does feel nice with that movement. Very nice on the grips. You've got spare nibs with this one as well in these little holders. I did consider buying one of those little carousel things where they go around and around and around, but I don't think I need one of those at this stage. So I'm really quite happy to get finally a good quality set of screwdrivers. These are now going to be my exclusive watch-only screwdrivers versus my others that get used with a whole bunch of other things. And that's probably going to be quite good, not only to pull movements apart or do these mod things that I'm planning on doing, but just having some good screwdrivers that only are used for watches is probably a good idea. And you can probably guess what this is. It's a loom kit. And it actually wasn't very expensive either. It has 4 different colors. There's like an off-white, green, yellow, and a very bright white. So I'm assuming that's going to be blue. There's the mixing liquid there that you mix with it. And then there's some thinners here to thin that out, a little mixing tray, and a little nib to apply it. So I've got some big plans for this. I'm hoping this works. If it's not good enough, maybe I'll have to invest elsewhere or look elsewhere. But from what I've seen online, it's actually perfectly usable, because I want to heat treat those hands and then add some loom, but I've got I've got some interesting ideas. I'm not sure really if these ideas are going to work, but even if they don't, well, hopefully it makes an interesting video and hopefully I'll have a good experience. But I'm really excited now to have all these parts, have those extra watches, and I want you to stay tuned to see those watches. But more actually, I'm more interested in you staying tuned to see this upcoming watch build, but it might be a little while because I've got a few other ideas and I need to do a little bit of practice first. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you do or want any more access to any of these, as I mentioned, I'll leave some descriptions, sort of links in the description of this video. Thanks for watching. Here's a couple other videos you might want to watch next.